Total combined weight 547 pounds from New York City, the Valiant Brothers.
There's a look at the Valiant Brothers.
Child support and then Valiant support. Now let me tell you something right now, ladies and gentlemen. The way it stands right now, Captain Lou Albano's being sued, baby. He's got the papers, was served with papers. The man's gonna pay alimony, mental, as well as financial alimony for the rest of his life.
John.
They were tag team champions and Hall of Famers, but also wrestling's biggest headaches. Meet the Valiant Brothers, loved by millions on stage, hated by companies backstage. This is their wild ride. The Valiant Brothers, Jimmy and Johnny, were one of the most well-known wrestling tag teams of the 1970s. They had big personalities, flashy outfits, and a way of keeping the crowd entertained. They won the WWF World Tag Team Championship in 1974, proving they were one of the best teams of their time. Their success led to their induction into the WWE Hall of Fame in 1996. But while they were stars in the ring, they had a different kind of reputation outside of it. Some people loved them, but others thought they were troublemakers who didn't always play fair. Their actions behind the scenes made them famous for more than just their wrestling skills. One person who had a lot to say about them was Bobby "The Brain" Heenan, a legendary wrestling manager. He didn't hold back when talking about the Valiant Brothers, calling them cheap con artists who always found ways to avoid paying their own bills. According to Heenan, they would skip out on restaurant tabs, borrow money they never repaid, and act in ways that made wrestling look bad. He even called Jimmy Valiant a pig to show how little respect he had for him. One wild rumor that went around was that Jimmy had once tattooed his own young son's forehead. Heenan admitted he couldn't prove if it was true, but the fact that people believed it showed the kind of reputation Jimmy had built. Heenan never forgave the Valiants. He stayed mad at them for years, even until his own passing. One of the things that upset him most was when Johnny Valiant left him with an expensive limousine bill. They had planned to share a ride, but Johnny ditched him at the last minute, taking a cab instead. That was the last straw for Heenan, and he never spoke to Johnny again. Stories like this made the Valiant Brothers known for being difficult to work with, no matter how popular they were with fans. Jimmy Valiant also found himself in trouble in the ring when he had a real-life fight with another wrestler, Edward "Moose" Cholak. Moose was a big guy and a respected veteran in wrestling. He and Jimmy had traveled together, and Jimmy owed Moose just $15 for travel expenses. It wasn't a huge amount, but Jimmy kept making excuses and never paid him back. After weeks of being ignored, Moose had enough. When they wrestled each other, Moose took matters into his own hands. Instead of following the planned script, he hit Jimmy with real punches and painful moves. Jimmy was left bruised and suffered a serious concussion that took him out of wrestling for months. This became one of the most famous examples of wrestlers dealing with their problems inside the ring instead of outside of it. It sent a message that debts, even small ones, weren't something to ignore. Johnny Valiant's life ended in a tragic accident. On April 4th, 2018, early in the morning, he was crossing McKnight Road in Ross Township, Pennsylvania, when a pickup truck hit him. He was 71 years old. He wasn't using a crosswalk, and the driver of the truck stayed at the scene and cooperated with the police. There was no foul play. It was simply a terrible accident. Johnny was rushed to Allegheny General Hospital, but his injuries were too severe, and he passed away soon after arriving. His death shocked the wrestling world. Many fans and wrestlers shared their sadness, and WWE even released a statement honoring his contributions. Wrestlers who knew Johnny personally spoke about how kind and supportive he had been. Former WWE star Luke Gallows said Johnny had helped him early in his career, and Sean X-Pac Waltman praised Johnny's Hall of Fame speech, calling it one of the best ever. Even though Johnny had some controversies in his life, he was still respected by many, and his passing was a sad moment for the wrestling community. Jimmy Valiant, on the other hand, is still alive today. Born in 1942, he is now in his early 80s and enjoying his retirement from wrestling. While he no longer wrestles, he still stays involved in the business. He runs a wrestling training school in Virginia, where he teaches and mentors young wrestlers who want to make a name for themselves. In 1996, Jimmy was inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame alongside his brother, securing their place in wrestling history. Even though he had his fair share of issues with fellow wrestlers, there's no doubt that he made an impact on the sport. His contributions are still remembered and celebrated. The Valiant Brothers were larger than life. They had moments of great success, moments of controversy, and stories that people still talk about today. Some saw them as entertaining and charismatic, while others saw them as troublemakers. But no matter how people viewed them, one thing is clear: they left their mark on wrestling. Johnny's tragic passing was a reminder of how unpredictable life can be, while Jimmy's continued presence in the wrestling community shows that their legacy lives on. Love them or hate them, the Valiant Brothers will always be remembered as one of wrestling's most unforgettable duos. To make their careers unforgettable here is a quick rundown of their epic life. Jimmy and Johnny Valiant, best known as the Valiant Brothers, had quite the journey before becoming famous in the wrestling world. Their real names were James Fanning, Jimmy, and Thomas Sullivan, Johnny, and they both grew up with a passion for wrestling. Long before they were winning championships, they were just two young guys trying to find their way in life. Jimmy was born in 1942 and grew up in Indiana. From an early age, he was drawn to sports and entertainment. He loved the idea of performing in front of crowds, and when he discovered professional wrestling, he knew it was something he wanted to be a part of. He started training as a wrestler in the 1960s, learning the ropes and figuring out how to develop his own style. At first, he wrestled under different names, struggling to find an identity that would make him stand out. But even in those early days, he had a natural charisma that made people pay attention. Johnny, on the other hand, was born in 1946 and grew up in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. Like Jimmy, he was fascinated by wrestling and wanted to be a part of the action. He started out doing small wrestling gigs, slowly working his way up and gaining experience. He was willing to do whatever it took to succeed, whether that meant traveling long distances for tiny paychecks or taking on tough opponents to prove himself. His hard work eventually paid off when he caught the attention of bigger promoters who saw potential in him. The two eventually met while working in the wrestling circuit, and they quickly realized they had something special. They had similar personalities, both loved entertaining crowds, and both had a confident, sometimes cocky attitude that made them stand out. It wasn't long before they were paired up as a tag team, and that's when their careers really started to take off. They became known as the Valiant Brothers, a flashy, charismatic duo that brought energy and excitement to every match they were in. In the late 1960s and early 1970s, the wrestling business was very different from what it is today. Wrestlers had to travel constantly, performing in different cities almost every night. There were no big TV deals or massive pay-per-view events, just live crowds, dedicated fans, and a lot of hard work. The Valiant Brothers embraced this lifestyle, moving from one territory to another, wrestling in different promotions, and building their reputation as a must-see act. Their matches were often wild and unpredictable, full of drama and excitement that kept audiences on the edge of their seats. One of the things that made them stand out was their ability to get the crowd involved. They weren't just wrestlers, they were entertainers. They would talk trash, strut around the ring, and play up their flashy personalities, making sure the audience was invested in every match. Whether they were the villains that fans loved to hate or the heroes that people cheered for, they knew how to work a crowd. Their confidence and showmanship set them apart from many other wrestlers of the time. Their big break came in 1974 when they won the WWF World Tag Team Championship. This was a huge moment in their careers, proving that they were among the best in the business. Winning a title in professional wrestling isn't just about being good in the ring, it's also about having the personality and presence to carry the championship and make people believe in you as stars. The Valiant Brothers had all of that. They were exciting to watch, knew how to build drama, and always kept fans entertained. At their peak, the Valiant Brothers were known for their feuds with other top teams of the time. One of their biggest rivalries was with Tony Garea and Dean Ho, a strong and determined tag team that wanted to take them down. Garea and Ho were fan favorites, and their matches against the Valiants were filled with action and drama. The two teams clashed many times, with the Valiant Brothers using their usual sneaky tactics to try and hold on to their championship. Fans loved to boo them, but at the same time, they couldn't deny how good they were in the ring. Another major feud was with Chief Jay Strongbow and Billy White Wolf. These two were also beloved by fans, and they had a fighting spirit that made them perfect opponents for the Valiants. The matches between these teams were intense, with Strongbow and White Wolf determined to bring down the arrogant champions. Eventually, they succeeded, defeating the Valiant Brothers for the tag team titles. This loss was a big moment in the Valiants' career, but it didn't slow them down. They remained a force in the wrestling world and continued to entertain fans everywhere they went. The Valiant Brothers were also known for their wild and unpredictable interviews. They would talk big, brag about themselves, and insult their opponents in ways that made people either love them or hate them. Their confidence and attitude made them standout personalities in an era when wrestling was becoming more about entertainment, as well as athletic competition. People wanted to see them get beaten, but at the same time, they couldn't stop watching them. As their career went on, the Valiants didn't just face top tag teams, they also had feuds with individual wrestlers. One of the most memorable rivalries involved Jimmy Valiant going up against legends like Jerry Lawler. Jimmy, later known as Boogie Woogie Man, Jimmy Valiant, became famous for his wild and colorful personality. His battles with Lawler in Memphis wrestling were legendary, filled with intense action and heated confrontations. Their matches often had wild brawls and fans packed arenas to see them go at it. While Johnny eventually took a step back from full-time wrestling and moved into a role as a manager, Jimmy continued wrestling and feuding with big names for many years. His battles with Paul Jones in the NWA were another highlight of his career. The two had a long and personal rivalry, with Jones leading a group of wrestlers against Jimmy in an attempt to take him down. Fans loved watching Jimmy fight back against the odds, and his ability to connect with the audience kept him popular even as he got older. The Valiant Brothers' peak years were filled with excitement, memorable matches, and legendary feuds. They were among the best at what they did, mixing wrestling skill with showmanship to create moments that fans still remember today. Their ability to work a crowd, their willingness to play the villains, and their talent in the ring made them one of the most iconic tag teams of their era. Even as wrestling changed over the years, the impact they had during their peak years remained a big part of wrestling history. In 1996, both Jimmy and Johnny received one of the highest honors a wrestler can get. They were inducted into the WWE Hall of Fame. This was a major recognition of everything they had accomplished in their careers. The Valiant Brothers had entertained millions of fans, won championships, and helped shape the future of tag team wrestling. Their Hall of Fame induction was a celebration of all the hard work and dedication they had put into the sport. It was a proud moment for both of them, and their fans were thrilled to see them honored in such a big way. After officially retiring from the ring, Johnny Valiant explored other areas of entertainment. He gave acting and stand-up comedy a shot, proving that he could make people laugh just as easily as he could get them to boo him in the ring. He appeared in TV shows and even took on roles in movies, showing that his talent went beyond wrestling. But while he found some success in these new areas, he would always be remembered first and foremost as one of wrestling's most colorful personalities. Sadly, Johnny's life came to a tragic end in 2018. While crossing a street in Pennsylvania, he was struck by a pickup truck. It was a heartbreaking moment for the wrestling world. He was 71 years old. His sudden passing shocked fans and fellow wrestlers alike, and many shared their memories and tributes to honor him. WWE acknowledged his passing, and wrestlers who had worked with him spoke about how much they had learned from him over the years. His legacy was secure, but his loss was deeply felt. Jimmy Valiant, however, continued to stay connected to wrestling long after his in-ring career ended. He dedicated himself to teaching and training the next generation of wrestlers. He opened a wrestling school in Virginia, where he spent his time mentoring young talents who dreamed of making it big. He loved passing on his knowledge and experiences, helping others find their way in the business he had loved for so many years. He also made appearances at wrestling events and conventions, meeting fans who still remembered his matches and larger-than-life personality. Even in his later years, Jimmy remained passionate about the sport and its history. The Valiant Brothers left a lasting impact on professional wrestling. They weren't just another tag team. They were entertainers who knew how to work a crowd, tell a story, and keep fans invested in every match they had. Their influence can still be seen today in modern wrestlers who use showmanship and personality to connect with audiences. Whether they were loved or hated, one thing was always true: people paid attention to the Valiant Brothers. Although Johnny is no longer with us and Jimmy is now enjoying his well-earned retirement, their contributions to wrestling will never be forgotten. Their induction into the Hall of Fame was a fitting tribute to everything they achieved, and their legacy lives on in the memories of the fans who grew up watching them. The Valiant Brothers may have left the ring, but their energy, excitement, and impact on wrestling will last forever. If you enjoyed learning about the Valiant Brothers and their incredible journey in wrestling, make sure to like this video and subscribe to the channel for more wrestling history and legendary stories. Drop a comment below and let us know your favorite memory of the Valiant Brothers. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you in the next video.